In 2021, as the initial season of the project was heading towards its climax, I was interviewed about my work on the Radio Free Scaro podcast. I'll leave a link in the description. On it, I said that if there was one score that I thought I could entirely transcribe, it would be The Seeds of Death, represented in episodes 4 and 9. I don't think that anymore. Although I'd like to do some more transcribing from that story, non-pitched percussion, drums and cymbals, play such a vital part that I think it's asking a lot to translate that effectively to the piano. The story I now believe I could transcribe more or less entirely is Fury from the Deep, and in a way I've set out to prove it. This score has the benefit, for my purposes, of being written for two keyboard instruments, organ and piano, with the piano altered to create a more metallic sound. Although condensing music for as few as two instruments still has its challenges, the piano's presence gives me a huge advantage. Like both of the transcriptions from Season 4's The Underwater Menace, that's episodes 2 and 42, the music of Foam Fight is a looped tape recording. This is easy to hear when the music abruptly restarts from the beginning. However, the presence of an existing soundtrack raised an interesting question. In the broadcast, the complete theme is heard only once, fading out near the beginning of its repetition. The soundtrack, as on the Blu-ray release, contains 2 complete repetitions of the music before fading out on the third. Normally, as you know, my transcriptions are about the music of the finished program. That's practical, of course, because so few soundtracks exist. I decided here to slightly break with tradition and perform as per the existing soundtrack. I think the theme's repetition strongly improves the arrangement. Things fly by so fast, I at least appreciated another chance to enjoy it. The organ is responsible for the melody, and its bright nasal timbre is represented by octaves in the arrangement. You'll hear many notes ornamented with impish grace notes, usually a lower neighbor, a note a half step below the main note. The first 2 of the 3 total phrases feature an inner line harmonizing the melody. In addition, the organ is responsible for some colorful harmonic effects that I'll explain as we go. The piano in the soundtrack is responsible for the waltz macabre accompaniment and keeps consistent harmony through each of the 3 contrasting phrases, save for one featured moment at the end of the second phrase. Each commences with 2 bars of solo accompaniment. The mischievous goings-on are instantly reflected in the goofy harmony on D natural, made of root, augmented 4th, and perfect 5th. The half-step crunch of the upper 2 notes allows us in on the joke. Although this may not have been in Simpson's mind, the entire first phrase is made of a 9-note minor scale, featuring color tones of the minor 2nd and the major 2nd, the augmented 4th, the minor 6th, and both the minor and major 7ths. Quite a rich texture. The melody hovers around the initial 4 scale notes, with the inner line lightly outlining the last 4. The second and third measures are tritone leaps that feature some of the impish grace notes. After a repeat of the first 5 beats, the melody leaps down to the augmented 4th, bounding to the minor 7th. It's joined by one of the effects, a shimmering major 2nd cluster that sounds like the vibrations of a pitched gong. Because of its prominence in the accompanying atmosphere, the left hand also adds the extra note E to its harmony in my arrangement, as does the final line of the melodic phrase. This final melodic line has some rhythmic interest too, for it features a clash of accents. In these 2 measures of 3 beats, the melodic rhythm divides instead into 3 beats of 2. So while the accompaniment continues its 1-2-3, 1-2-3 rhythm, the melody switches emphasis to 1-2-1-2, 1-2. The term for this rhythmic confounding is a hemiola. After 16 measures of these colors, the next phrase switches to a highly contrasting harmony. Compared to the initial chord, which is skeletal and, well, macabre. This rich harmony is based on F minor 7 with an added minor 6th D flat. Interestingly, the melody and harmony of this second phrase can also be distilled into a 9-note scale, with color tones of the major second, the perfect and augmented fourths, the minor sixth, and the minor and major sevenths once again. Here, the melody revolves around the root in a new way, dipping down to the major seventh, the leading tone a half step below the root, and stretching up to the minor third. Meanwhile, the inner line wavers on either side of the perfect fifth. In the second and third measures, though the leaps are not quite as wide, the peak note B-flat and its grace notes return. The melody continues in a similar flow to the first phrase, which includes the gong-like sound, again produced by both hands in the arrangement. The downward melodic leap to finish the phrase is unusual in that it reaches the major third, foreign to the 9-note minor scale. This could be a mistake, but, well, there it is. The added gong sound here on F and G, with the octave melody E-flat, required a strange technique. My right hand must use the muscle part of the thumb to get the F pressed down. In the earlier phrase, the thumb merely stretched across the two notes. Instead of engaging in the rhythmic adventures of the first phrase, the left-hand harmony is given prominence in concluding this second 13-measure phrase. Chords of minor sevenths rise twice in chromatic parallel. Then a trio of diminished seventh chords descend to a final sound resembling G-flat dominant 7, which gives away the next harmony. Curiously, this left-hand chordal passage initiates a pulling back of the tempo, confirmed by a new, slightly slower tempo in the third phrase, which I replicate in my performance. It's subtle, so you might have to trust me. On to the third 16-measure phrase, which is largely based on the octatonic scale on C natural, a sound familiar to longtime project viewers. The opening two bars of harmony consist of the minor third, minor seventh, and the perfect and diminished fifth together, though an octave apart here, unlike the crunchy chords from the first phrase. This harmony strongly recalls another waltz macabre, the celestial toymaker piece Blind Man's Buff from episode 14. Notice that because of the distance between the two sounds, it was convenient to briefly split accompaniment duties between the two hands. As the melody resumes up an octave in register, the harmonic effects become more active, coloring each note. The octatonic melody lands on a foreign D natural, though when supported by the chromatic descent of parallel perfect fourths, it attains a brief consonance. However, the piano's waltz macabre figure is ever present and slightly clashes with the organ's bubbling. During this phrase, it became necessary to leave out some of the piano's material to highlight the most important elements. In addition, the damper pedal is prominent here, allowing all elements to ring together at the cost of losing some staccato articulations. As in the earlier sections, the first three measures of the phrase begin to repeat, ornamented with grace notes. Then, while the melody quickly flings to a tritone and back, the colors also land on a tritone, which will support each of the concluding melody notes. The piano's accompanying chords continue implacably throughout, and where possible in my arrangement. The melody burbles for two measures through sets of repeated pitches with grace notes. It then tosses out tritone leaps with grace notes on the upper note in the hemiola rhythm. The accompaniment colors follow suit, supporting each note with a distinctive tritone harmony. There follows 3 bars elongation of the same idea, and all the while the piano accompaniment gamely keeps time. Here marks the end of the theme, and the music abruptly resumes from the top. As I mentioned, I elected to honor the existing soundtrack by repeating the entirety of the music I've just described. In addition, I've honored the fade out that occurs during the first phrase of the third repetition. This required a tiny bit of composition. With the melody and colors ringing on, the accompaniment harmony starts thicker, then reduces in texture for the next two measures. Next, I chose to leave out the notes of the downbeat, signaling the quiet to come, and allowing a final burst of harmony. Then, with two beats of silence, a reticent pulse in the bass signals the battle has ended in a draw. Suddenly, there are more important things to attend to. I hope episode 48, part 2 of the Dudley Simpson Is Doctor Who project gave as good as it got. Thanks especially to my lovely and foamy Patreons who make videos like this happen and get to see them first, amongst other bonus excitements. Join too at patreon.com/Jess Jurkovic. If a tip is all you feel like, I do not mind at all, and I'm grateful as well. Go to ko-fi.com/Jess Jurkovic to give as you feel. Subscribe, like, share, and comment on YouTube as well. See you next time.